Right now on Current News, a memorial for COVID victims, the ones who died in nursing homes, and new calls to hold Governor Cuomo accountable. Plus, Stop Asian Hate, a rallying cry in New York City as violence spikes. The border is closed. That's the message from the Biden administration as a surge in migrants brings the situation to a breaking point. And a historic first. The new head of Xavier High School tells us her vision for the school's future. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. More than 15,000 people died in New York State nursing homes since the pandemic began. A memorial wall now stands in their honor as families grieve and call for answers from the governor. Jessica Easthope has the story from Cobble Hill.
Here's my parents.
Mickey and Dean Newman were always a package deal.
They lived in Brooklyn. They lived in the same apartment for 60 years. And they were never separated. They never went on a trip without each other. They never went to a party without each other.
February 11th, 1961.
They were only apart one time in their 60 years of marriage while living in separate care facilities. The dream was always to get back to each other, a chance they didn't get in this life. Mickey passed away in his facility of COVID-19 on March 30th. Dee, just 2 weeks later.
We're Roman Catholic. We couldn't have the normal burial that they deserved. Couldn't see them, couldn't hold their hand, couldn't go near them. The hospital called after my mom had died and she was dead. They wanted you to come and see her through a glass window. That's not how it's supposed to be.
In the 46 days Governor Andrew Cuomo's directive ordering nursing homes to take in COVID-positive patients was in place, more than 6,000 patients with the virus were placed into facilities. To date, the number of people who died of COVID-19 in nursing homes, assisted living facilities, and rehabilitation centers is more than 15,000. Now the loss is front and center. Faces of lives cut short and families torn apart. The We Care Memorial Wall was put up in front of the Cobble Hill Health Center.
It's a hard picture to look at.
Where Peter Arbini's dad Norman caught COVID-19.
The governor said 28%, 33%. That's just thousands of people. So I wanted to put their faces on a wall because a number is a person, is a family.
Peter and his brother Daniel have now become advocates for their father and the thousands of others who they say Governor Cuomo put in danger.
On March 15th, he locked us out of the nursing homes. On March 25th, he sent COVID in. We still don't have an apology.
Threatening me to lie for him.
Assemblyman Ron Kim, who has been one of the most outspoken critics against the governor's handling of nursing home deaths, says he was threatened if he did not help Governor Cuomo cover up what Kim calls a fatal error.
The moment he ordered me to issue a lie, he passed an unethical and perhaps an illegal point that I had a duty to push back and fight for our constituents. I made promises to these families behind me.
An apology won't bring these people back, but those missing them say they're still waiting for one.
So who cares? We care. We need people to care.
And they'll continue to wait until they get justice. In Cobble Hill, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Starting Tuesday, all New Yorkers ages 50 and up will be eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. Governor Cuomo made the announcement as he kicked off his Roll Up Your Sleeve campaign, a partnership with faith-based communities to promote vaccination efforts in neighborhoods hard hit by the pandemic. And for the younger community, some good news. Public high schools in New York City are now open for in-person learning. Roughly 55,000 students are returning to the 488 high schools citywide. Mayor Bill de Blasio spent the morning greeting students as they returned to the Bronx School for Law, Government, and Justice. Catholic schools in the city have been operating without interruption since September and have seen a growing number of new students. Same with the Diocese of Arlington, Virginia. Coming up, we speak with the superintendent of schools for the diocese, Dr. Joseph Varbach, as he looks to hire 150 new teachers as the wait list for seats grows. Turning now to a growing problem on the streets of New York. The NYPD is investigating another possible anti-Asian hate crime that happened in Chinatown this weekend. Crime Stoppers releasing this photo of a man who started randomly yelling at and then punched a 66-year-old Asian man early Saturday morning. The victim suffered swelling and bruising to the left side of his face but refused medical attention at the scene. Police say the man is between 5'5" and 5'7". New York State is seeing more acts of racial discrimination than almost any other state, according to the Stop AAPI Hate national report. The study looks at the number of incidents reported from March of 2020 to February of 2021. New York received 517 reports of racial discrimination, the second highest state in the country after California, which saw close to 1,700 cases. Breaking down the incidents reported, Chinese people were the largest group to experience hate at just over 42%. Following that were Korean people at 14.8%, Vietnamese people at 8.5%, and Filipinos at 7.9%. This as the investigation into the shooting in Atlanta that left 8 people dead continues. At this point, there is no evidence of a federal hate crime, but people across the country took part in rallies over the weekend condemning attacks against Asian Americans. In New York City, crowds chanted "Stop Asian Hate" as they walked towards Union Square. Demonstrators say they are tired of dealing with discrimination and hope the tragedy in Atlanta will spark change.
I'm Asian and I'm a woman, and if I don't stand up for myself, then no one else will. So that's why I'm here. And I want people to finally hear us, for us, not only when we're trending.
Speaking at a rally over the weekend, State Attorney General Letitia James is encouraging New Yorkers to report any incident of anti-Asian hate and violence to her office. In the Diocese of Brooklyn, Father Vincentius Doe, who leads the Chinese apostolate, says Asian Americans should not be afraid to speak up.
One of the good things about these protests is that we bring the issue to the forefront so that more and more people are aware of it. No one should suffer in silence. No one should allow these crimes to continue. Speak up and speak out.
Father Doe encourages anyone who has experienced discrimination and violence to reach out to their local parish for help. The U.S. bishops have also denounced the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes across the country, saying every human being is a brother or sister in Christ. The Supreme Court will consider reinstating the death penalty against the Boston Marathon bomber. They will review the case that wiped away Dzhokhar Tsarnaev's death sentence in July of last year. He and his brother set bombs off at the 2013 Boston Marathon, killing 3 and injuring hundreds. The case will be reviewed later this year. Many pro-life activists speaking out against the newly appointed Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra. Ahead of his swearing in, the Catholic Medical Association sent a letter to every member of the Senate disapproving of Becerra and his support for legal abortion. 60 leaders also signed a letter in February objecting to his nomination and urging the Senate to reject it. Becerra, who is Catholic, has a 100% approval rating from Planned Parenthood for his record on abortion during his 25 years in Congress. Documents show more than 800 unaccompanied children have been in Border Patrol custody for more than 10 days. They can only legally be held for 72 hours. But amid the surge in migrants, the Biden administration says the border is closed. John Lawrence has more.
The White House isn't calling the situation at the southern border a crisis, but by any yardstick, it's a tense situation.
We are executing on our plan. It does take time. It is difficult.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection detained nearly 9,300 unaccompanied children last month, almost doubling January's total. Thousands are being held in facilities for more than the 72 hours that's allowed by law.
We are working around the clock to move those children out of the Border Patrol facilities into the care and custody of the Department of Health and Human Services that shelters them.
The Department of Homeland Security expects the number of migrants at the border will soon hit a peak not seen in at least 2 decades. Republicans say President Biden hasn't come up with solutions after overturning some of the Trump administration's immigration policies.
I haven't seen a plan. They talk about humane conditions, humanitarian. They have created a humanitarian crisis down here at this border.
Let's have rapid adjudications at the border. This was a pilot program started in the Trump administration. It was stopped. Let's put that back in place.
No word yet on when the White House will reopen the border. I'm John Lawrence reporting.
The city of Miami is now in a state of emergency as people flood the party scene. A Thursday through Sunday 8 p.m. curfew has been extended at the popular tourist spot to help control unruly and mostly maskless crowds. The emergency order, which started this past Saturday, will now last until April 12th. The CDC renewed its recommendation against travel there and across the country today, warning infections could rise with the threat of new variants. For the first time in history, a woman is leading Xavier High School in Manhattan, becoming part of a small number of female Jesuit school headmasters. Emily Drewby spoke to her and shares her story.
For 174 years, the students who have attended prestigious Xavier High School have been led by men. Now that's changing.
I felt really privileged to be able to help elicit pride of women doing this work, because I know that I am a part of a much wider fabric.
Kim Smith named the school's 55th headmaster, making history and changing the face of education. Out of 60 Jesuit high schools in the country, only 16 have female principals or headmasters. She makes 17. Small numbers of women in top education positions is a national trend. For example, according to the Superintendents Association, only 24% of superintendents in the U.S. are women. Xavier can now say they're helping to change that.
It is a momentous sort of step for us that I'm very excited about.
Lindsay Willard helped hire Kim.
It's always important to have certainly representation of, a diverse group of people in positions of leadership. So it's inspiring to be, especially as a person, as a woman who is in a position of leadership here.
During the hiring process, students also got to interview Kim. Patrick Burke says she stood out for all the right reasons.
And it wasn't just listening because she had to sit there and had to listen to us. She really wanted to listen to us. She really wanted to hear our stories, our backgrounds, hear our thoughts and our opinions, and you could tell she absorbed it.
It's a big job. Overseeing the academic programs, service projects, athletics, and more, Kim will be relying on her faith.
God wants us to be our best versions of ourselves in the world, and we have to be not afraid to say yes to that.
Kim is currently finishing out the year as a vice principal at Boston College High School. She's been there 20 years and started as a teacher. She'll take over at Xavier in July. In Manhattan, Emily Drewby, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way. Remembering Dorothy Day, the Catholic icon's sainthood cause is picking up steam across the country. And Sister Jean and Loyola move on to the Sweet 16. We have her message to the team ahead.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
This Women's History Month, we want to celebrate the life of Dorothy Day, the rebel who hailed from Brooklyn and helped change hearts and minds with her radical faith and an unrelenting love of God. Her admirers still marvel at her unique ability to reconcile deep-seated beliefs with the very soul of Catholic social teaching. Dorothy Day was described as a dangerous American by the federal government, investigated by the FBI, case number 100-2403-1, arrested multiple times before and after her conversion to Catholicism. Now she's on the road to sainthood.
She must be one of the few saints whose arrest records had to be looked up in order for her to become canonized, because she protested
peacefully for the rights of the marginalized and the unequal distribution of wealth. She was staunchly against war of any kind and the buildup of nuclear arms. Many called her a communist and socialist sympathizer, an anarchist. All considered her radical for her time.
Well, I think if you take the Lord's words, you'll find they're pretty rigorous.
But the woman who famously helped establish the Catholic worker movement at the height of the Great Depression knew instinctively that the need was great. Her activism gave birth to the Catholic worker newspaper still in existence today, soup kitchens to feed the poor, and multiple houses of hospitality to house them. DEIRDRE CORNELL knew Dorothy Day when she was a teenager. Her parents worked with and lived among the Catholic worker community for years.
She was always a presence in our life. She was like a grandmother to me. And my parents just, they thought of her really as their mentor, their spiritual mother.
A spiritual mother who was also a single mother. The birth of her daughter was the catalyst that changed her life and brought her to God.
She will be one of the few Catholic saints who was a single mother raising a child, and then she had 9 grandchildren.
After living a bohemian lifestyle filled with longing, she eventually filled that void with church teachings. A revolution of the heart, she called it, starting with her own.
She looked back on her life and saw it as a story of grace, feeling that she'd had a really rough early life, but that God had washed that all away.
Robert Ellsberg also knew and worked with Dorothy Day towards the end of her life. He's editing much of her writings and is on Cardinal Dolan's commission to advance her cause for canonization. He believes she will one day be Saint Dorothy Day.
100%. That is to say, I don't see anything that would stop it.
One reason could be Pope Francis's own commitment to issues of social justice, even highlighting her work before a joint session of Congress during his visit to the states in 2015.
Her social activism, her passion for justice and for the cause of the oppressed were inspired by the gospel, her faith, and the example of the saints.
She is so much in alignment with his emphasis on Christians as missionary disciples, that we are all called to follow Christ in the world.
Ellsberg says Dorothy Day's road to sainthood could take another step forward by the summer, when the commission will have documentation to send along to Rome.
They will make a recommendation to the Pope, and if he accepts that, then she would be termed venerable.
God willing, in 2,000 years, we'll be looking to St. Dorothy to draw inspiration.
Inspiration born of her radical faith, a lasting legacy that continues to mesmerize more than 40 years after her death. Today, there are almost 200 Catholic worker communities around the world that provide essential services to those on the margins of society. Faithful to the mission, Catholic workers continue to protest injustice, war, racism, and violence of any kind. Churches will be open this year for Easter, so the tablet is helping you find a service in your area. The paper has a full list of masses and vigils from a variety of parishes all around Brooklyn and Queens, starting from Palm Sunday and ending with Mass on Easter Sunday. For a look at the full schedule, as well as all Holy Week updates, just go to thetablet.org. And if you go to Mass on Good Friday, you could be helping Christians in the Holy Land. Collections during that service go to a Vatican effort that supports the work of the Franciscans there. They have maintained the holy places of pilgrimage where Jesus Christ walked for the past 800 years. The funds also send support to Christians in the Middle East. If you plan to attend the Mass virtually or want to donate before Good Friday, just go to myfranciscan.org/Good Friday. According to the National Catholic Education Association, thanks to the pandemic, enrollment at Catholic schools across the country is down 6.4% this school year. But that's not the case in the Diocese of Arlington, Virginia, where they are ready to go on a hiring spree. Joining us now to tell us why is their Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Joseph Vorbach. And Dr. Vorbach, we're hearing you have so many students on a wait list, you need more teachers, and you're looking to hire about 150 more. Tell us about that.
Sure. Well, we're always looking for good talent, new talent, and this is a time of year that we would normally be in the mode of doing that. And as we think about next year in light of where we've been this year, especially with the number of our schools having wait lists and some uncertainty about exactly what that's going to look like going forward. And so the exact staffing at each school is moving into next year is in a situation where we think we're going to have some needs, and we want to be ready for that.
All right, much like the Diocese of Brooklyn, the Diocese of Arlington has managed to keep its schools open safely this school year. What precautions have your schools taken that others in the area maybe haven't?
Well, we built reopening plans. Each of our schools built their own reopening plan in accordance with the Governor of Virginia's mandates. And our bishop, Bishop Burbidge, his guidance was obviously that we want to be learning in person as soon as it's safe to do so. So everyone set out to build plans, and we were paying a lot of attention to best practices. And a lot of this would probably be familiar to you in your schools. It started in the morning with what folks did before they left their homes, the check-ins that took place when they got to their schools, the types of traffic patterns in the hallways, hand wash stations, sometimes dividers in classrooms, using cohorts, obviously mask wearing, and a lot of air filtration, circulation of air, movement of air, bringing fresh air into the rooms. Mm-hmm. All of those things have been used in our schools, and it's been successful.
Now, are your schools large enough to accommodate an influx of students and teachers? You know, if social distancing rules are still in place next fall. I know a new, bigger high school was opened last summer, but what about space in your other schools?
Our schools were all abiding, obviously, by the state of Virginia's guidance, but there was the possibility of using a variance to allow distancing down to as little as 3 feet. Mm-hmm. Some of our schools used that approach. Now the CDC has spoken on the distancing question, and it seems more likely that schools will use the 3-foot distancing. As that happens, it will be possible to bring more students into the school safely, and we expect schools to be doing that.
Now, public schools may also be fully back open come September. Is there any concern in hiring all of these teachers that students on your wait list will just go back to the public schools when that happens?
It's a good question, and one that we can never be 100% sure of. For those families that joined us from public school, our goal this year was to have their experience be a complete affirmation of their decision to join us in Catholic education, as we would want for every one of our families in our schools. And we think that the message about the good that's going on in Catholic education will carry some significant weight. And of course, we really ultimately want all kids back in school in person, and we will try to be in a position to serve as many of them as possible and to help as many families that seek Catholic education as possible.
Wonderful. Dr. Joseph Vorbach, Superintendent of Schools for the Diocese of Arlington. Thanks for joining us, and good luck.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being with you.
Still to come on Currents News, a prayer from Sister Jean lifts Loyola to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. We'll tell you what's next for the team. Loyola's basketball team is moving on up to the Sweet 16, and they can thank their good luck charm for the win.
The amazing Sister Jean Trace.
Sister Jean Dolores Schmidt, the team's chaplain and superfan, was watching from a luxury suite in her trademark maroon and gold scarf at the game. She also delivered the pregame prayer, though she says she seeks divine intervention during the game, too.
People say, Sister Jean, do you pray during the game? You better believe it. I do.
Loyola will play Oregon State next, and you better believe Sister Jean will be there to cheer them on. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.